We have an epidemic of Alzheimer's disease. Western governments are in absolute panic because it is a terrible epidemic and it's like an avalanche coming onto humanity. Alzheimer's disease, dementia. Vast percent of that epidemic is due to statins because every one of these people are taking these drugs. The brain is starving. It cannot form synapses. As a result, the person cannot learn anything, cannot remember anything, and develops Alzheimer's disease. It is associated with poor immunity because our immune cells are high-fat cells. Large percent of the cell membrane and the membranes inside the cell, which form organelles, are made out of cholesterol and saturated fat. And immune cells live a very short life, only a few days, many of them. And when there is any infection in the body, there's a fight going on, many of them die. So your bone marrow has to work very hard to give birth to new baby cells, immune cells, because all your immune cells are born in the bone marrow. Bone marrow is a high cholesterol organ. It has a very high composition of cholesterol. And again, most of that cholesterol comes to your bone marrow from the blood. If you have a low level of cholesterol in your blood, your bone marrow is starving. It cannot manufacture immune cells, blood cells, and many other cells. As a result, you become prone to infections. Western governments are all running around with these hospital infections, MRSA. You've heard of that, haven't you? That hospital infections have become a big problem. Why? Because every patient in these hospitals older than 40 is on statins. They have reduced their cholesterol level in the blood. They are unable to fight infections. In order to fight an infection, we need LDL cholesterol. That is a major, major part of any fight with any infection in the blood. Your immune system requires large amounts of LDL cholesterol. And what are they doing? They're giving them statins. LDL cholesterol is low. The person cannot fight any infection. They're completely defenseless, these patients. That is why we have hospital infections. That is a major, major cause of it.
Because of high cholesterol, 1 out of 4 adults is gambling with heart disease. You could leave it to chance or do something about it with a diet including Fleischmann's margarine, 0 cholesterol, low saturated fat.
For great bacony crunch without cholesterol, bring home the Bacos.
Learning disabilities in children and adults, without doubt. Mother's breast milk is very rich in cholesterol. It has a high content of cholesterol. More than that, it has an enzyme in it to make sure that the baby's digestive system absorbs 100% of that cholesterol. Not one molecule of it gets wasted when babies are breastfeeding. Why? Because the baby's brain and eyes and bone marrow and other high-fat organs require large amounts of cholesterol to form themselves properly. Manufacturers of formula feed for babies know this fact. But because of all the propaganda with cholesterol, they don't put any cholesterol in formulas. That is why it is a very high rate amongst formula-fed babies. They have a very high percentage of poor ability to learn, lower intelligence, problems with behavior, and glasses. They have poor eyesight because their eyes didn't form properly in these children. And infections as well, because bone marrow is not being properly formed. It is associated with early death. People with low blood cholesterol don't live long. They die early.
And the truth is getting to the people, but new listeners tune in, and it sounds so wild. And he was saying vegetarian diets give you cancer and kill you because they don't have the fats you need, and your cells basically collapse, and then statins eat holes through your brain even faster. He was saying that 25, 30 years ago. Guess what's in the London Telegraph today? Huge, giant, mega study, long-term vegetarian diet changes human DNA, raising risk of cancer and heart disease. It's well known that people that eat vegetarian diets culturally are shriveled, are weak, are stupid, are infertile, and have small cc-sized brains.
Every diet contained animal foods. This was Dr. Price's greatest disappointment. He had hoped to find a culture where they were only eating plant foods and that was healthy. And he did not find this, and he admitted that he was wrong. They went to great risk to obtain the animal foods, great effort and risk to obtain the animal foods, and all of the sacred foods were animal foods. In Dr. Price's opinion, the most important animal food was fish and shellfish. He not only described living skull structure, but he always took calipers with him, and he asked the primitive people to show him the skulls of their ancestors, and he measured the thickness of the skulls. And the people who ate the most fish and shellfish had the thickest skulls. Many cultures ate birds, chickens, ducks, geese, wild birds, always with the organs, fat, and skin. They didn't want skinless chicken breasts, you know, that was, and which is basically inedible anyway. And then a lot of cultures ate red meat, beef, goat, sheep, game, etc., with the organ meats and the fat preferred. In fact, they would hunt animals when they knew that they were fat because they wanted that fat. In Australia, the Aboriginal people, if they killed a kangaroo that didn't have enough fat on it, that was called rubbish. And they would just throw it away. It was not worth eating. Many cultures had dairy products from cows, sheep, goats, camels, water buffalo, reindeer, you know, all different species. Always raw or cultured, never pasteurized. And many cultures ate eggs from birds that are outside. And reptiles and insects, again, very important foods, not for us, but for other cultures. I'm not here to tell you you have to eat insects, but we have to recognize that these were nutrient-dense foods in many cultures.